So the first topic here you have the importance of good design. With today's technology and tools, our motivation is to create a able interface and screens. It is usable interfaces. Is it really effective interfaces and screens? But still, some of the developers still continue to produce inefficient and confusing interfaces. Is it? So what are the reasons behind this? What are the reasons for bad design? There are 4 point questions to be answered here. So, do you think we don't care? We don't possess common sense? We don't have time for building a design, good design? We don't know what really makes a good design. So, out of these four questions, we really think that the fourth one is very important point here. That is, we still don't know what really makes good design. Why? Because first point, if you are saying we care, every developer cares for the customer, is it? So that point doesn't hold here. And next, we don't possess common sense, we possess common sense. Every developer has some common sense. We don't have time. See, for any organization to get a profit, he has to spend some time. So that doesn't mean a developer may not be having time, he will be having enough time. But the fourth point is here, what uh, I think here is, we still don't know what really makes a good design. So this point is very important here. Okay, every developer don't know what really makes a good design, and so this is a point here to be noted. So a well-designed interface and screen is terribly important to all the users. As you know, it will help the uh, viewers to view the capabilities of the system. Okay, a good design if you are having, and for many, it is a system um, through which you will be using the every user will be viewing the products of the developers what they are going to create. And for some users, the user interface may be acting like a vehicle through which many critical tasks are being presented. So all these tasks often have direct impact on an organization's relationship with the customers and profitability. So a poor design may even chase some people stay away from the system permanently. So if you are thinking, if you are using, for example, if you are using a website, and if you have a very good user interface for a website, you always stay with that particular website, and you stay away from this website which are of bad design, okay, which is very cluttered. If you are seeing, you may get aggravation, or you may be frustrated to seeing those bad designs. And some due to this, the users may also get stressed continuously if they are using, is it? So some due to this stress, some users may even drop his PC on the floor, is it? So these things may happen because of having a bad design. So in a real world, you can say that, for example, uh, if you are having an office, and if you have a closed door with complete wood, you may not see through what the employees are working with, is it? So our suggestion is, having a good design is, we go for glass doors, is it? So that is in the companies it happens. Same way it applies to the any applications or websites, what you're going to design. So that is the importance of the good design. Let's go for benefits of good design. So poor clarity forces any screen users to spend 1 extra second per screen. So if you think he spends 1 extra second, so suppose around the world there are many number of screens that are being used by number of users. So if they are doing the analysis, they get final calculation as 20 extra seconds are spent for screen usage, and it adds an additional 14 year person years. So you can think of, if there are bad designs that are used by users, okay, they may be spending a lot of time, the time of the users may be lost, okay. And if you are going to implement it in a very better manner, it will save the time of the users, okay. A good design will save the time of the users. So benefits of good designed screens are: screen users of modified screens completed transactions in 25% less time with 25% fewer errors than those used with the original screens, okay. So suppose you had a original screen that was cluttered thing that, okay, you had an original screen with cluttered designs, but you have modified that screen, okay. So based on the customer's requirement, they have modified it, developers have modified the screen, and this reduced the transaction time. After modifying the screen, they got a very good design, okay. So after this, it made the transactions to occur in less time, okay. And also this led to fewer errors among the users. uh, if you are having good design, it reduces the decision making time also, okay. Another benefit is screen users were about 20% more productive with less crowded version. So productivity will be automatically increased because of having a good design. So another benefit is one graphical window redesigned to be more effective would save company about $20,000 during its first year of use. Okay, so these are the benefits of good design. Let us see few more benefits of good design. Good design reduces the software complexity, which makes the software easier to understand and modify. This facilitates the rapid development during the project and provides the future foundation for the maintenance and continued system evolution. So if you have a good design, you can maintain the software very easily, and it also helps the users to understand the system in a better manner, and also it may be easier for modification purposes, and thus your system may be in evolution phase. Okay, and other benefits are a good design makes it easier to reuse the code. So suppose if you have built a very good design for your app, that code, whatever you have developed for developing a good design user interface, can be used in other projects also. And also the other benefit is it improves the software quality. Good design exposes defects and makes it easier to test the software. Okay, and your good design has to be in a very simple manner. Okay, complexity, if there is a complexity, it is a root cause for other problems such as security. So if your user interface is very simple to understand, there will be less number of errors, and there will be less number of security problems, okay. There will be no issues in security. So thus it is another benefit of having a good design. Your system will be very secure, okay. A program that is difficult to understand is more likely to be vulnerable to exploits than one that is simpler. Brief history of human computer interface, or HCI. So as you know, since humans started living on this earth, they had to start to communicate with each other. So they started using movements of their hands and different gestures they have used to communicate with each other. So you can see that in this first diagram, there are different types of gestures that were used in earlier days for communication purpose. So after this, day by day, the next level of communication mode was using spoken language, is it? So the next higher level in terms of university and complexity is spoken language. Most people can speak one or other language nowadays. So it became another efficient mode of communication between the two parties or two persons, is it? And next, third kind of mode which was developed later was written language. The third highest level of complexity is written language. But still, most of the people can speak one or two languages, but they cannot write. There are difficulties in writing the language. Uh, so, spoken language had good importance here in means of communication. So, later times, after people started understanding the spoken language and also written language, they started communicating with the systems like typewriters. Okay, so you can see here a typewriter has a quite kind of keyboard. So using this, they used to write and get the printouts. So some may be skilled in writing on the sheets, but some may be skilled in typing faster than writing. Is it typing speed may be more compared to writing speed? So this was another system, but every user cannot use this kind of typewriting machines. So later they found different kinds of systems. So you can see that CRT monitors were used earlier days. Okay, that PCs all had CRT monitors. So here also the QWERTY keyboards were used for communicating with the systems or the PCs, and mouse also were used. So systems that recognize human speech and handwriting now exist, although they still lack the universality and richness of the typed input. So nowadays, we mostly the human-computer dialogue, whatever you can see on the systems, you can communicate through command language. There may be a question and answers that are displayed on the screen. Sometimes menu selection options are also displayed, and you can use function keys also for communicating with the systems. And sometimes you may be also using form fill-ins, uh, okay, to fill some of the application forms. You may be using form fill-ins. So like this, these are the different ways or modes of communication that the humans were using in earlier days. And still we are using now the PCs using keyboards and mouse as input devices we use to communicate with the systems. Introduction of the graphical user interface. So in 1980s, the Xerox systems introduced the system named as Xerox Star and Altus, and this system introduced the mouse for pointing and selecting any object on the screen. So this was the main primary human computer communication method that was used in 1980s. So the user simply pointed at the screen using the mouse as an intermediary, and these systems also introduced graphical user interface. As you know, the Xerox system, it introduced the first commercial PC to incorporate certain technologies that have become standard for many PCs nowadays. So it included the bitmapped display into the PC, and also it started using window-based GUIs. So earlier days it was not there. Icons, folders, mouse, Ethernet network, print servers, and emails were all introduced in 1980s. Okay, so this was Xerox was the first uh, first company to introduce these technologies such as this GUIs, and also it started using mouse. That was a two-button mouse. Those days there were only two buttons on the mouse. Okay, so this was a introduction of graphical user interface. So as I said, Xerox was the first to introduce certain technologies, that is in 1981. But Xerox was never able to market the star system, that is Xerox star system, successfully. Soon after Xerox star was introduced, the Apple company quickly picked up the concepts, and Macintosh was released in 1984. So earlier, if you see, Xerox systems were introduced in 1981, that is Xerox star system. But in 1984, Apple introduced some other system, and that was first successful mass market system. Okay, Apple systems. A new concept was born and revolutioning the human computer interface. Uh, you can see how the graphical user interface right now is displayed. Okay, you can see here uh, a graphical user interface has window manipulating icons now, and also it has tabs. Okay, you can see that certain tabs and icons also you can see, and sliders, maybe for mouse movement you are using sliders here, and status bars also you'll be seen on the screen. So these are the different kinds of GUIs you generally see nowadays. Okay, so let us move on to the chronological history of GUIs. We have a table here. Okay, that is earlier in 1973, uh, what the system uh, was introduced is, it was pioneered at Xerox Palo Alto Research Center. Uh, so the Xerox company was the first to pull together all the elements of modern GUI. So this was the first company to introduce the modern GUI. And in 1981, first commercially marketing as the Xerox Star was widely introduced, pointing, selection and mouse. So in 1981, you can see that in 1981, Xerox company started selling the system named as Xerox Star. Okay, actually Star is a software that is being used in Xerox system. Okay, but they have called the system as, they have named it as, so like we have nowadays we have Lenovo IdeaPad. Okay, same way they have named it as Xerox Star, the system or PC. They have named it as Xerox Star. Okay, and later in 1983, uh, so some concepts whatever the Xerox has introduced, that was taken up by Apple company, and the concepts were introduced in Apple systems. So Apple introduces the Lisa. It features pull down menus and menu bars. So earlier mouse was introduced by Xerox company, but the GUIs whatever the Xerox company had used were better manipulated, and they in Apple we got some pull down menus and menu bars. And in 1984, Apple introduced Macintosh. So Macintosh was the first successful mass market system. So whatever the ideas Xerox had were all taken up by Apple. Next step, later in 1985, Microsoft Windows 1.0 was released, and Commodore introduced the Amiga 1000. And in 1987, X Windows system becomes widely available, and IBM's system application architecture was released, including common user access. IBM's presentation manager was also released, and Apple introduces Macintosh 2, the first color Macintosh. So earlier, if you are seeing the earlier systems, okay, it was only monochromatic systems, monochromatic color it was. But here in 1987, the first color Macintosh was released, and 1988 next step released first to stimulate this 3D screen. So this was the first company to release a 3D screen. And next in 1989, Unix-based UIs were released. Okay, OpenLook by AT&T and Sun's Microsystems were released, uh, and appearance and behavior based on the presentation manager. Microsoft Windows 3.0 was also released. In 1992, after 10 years of introduction of Xerox systems, that is in 1992, uh, Microsoft Windows 3.1 was released, and in 1993 Microsoft Windows NT was released. 1995 Microsoft Windows 95 was released, and 1996 IBM releases OS by 2 Graph 4. Microsoft introduces NT 4.0, and 1997 Apple releases Mac OS 8, and 1998 Microsoft introduces Windows 98. In 1999, the Unix-based OS was also released. Apple releases Mac OS X Server, and in 2000, Microsoft Windows releases 2000 version. That is, Microsoft Windows ME was also released. In 2001, Microsoft Windows XP also is being released, and now we have the latest version of Microsoft Windows, and you have got very good GUIs nowadays. So in this slide, you can see how the earlier GUIs were in the old computers. Maybe in 1990s, we were using GUIs. We had menus, file folders, everything. But how the appearance was, it was totally different for the user. Is it? But nowadays, so you can see that the color in the system is also very dull kind. But nowadays you have got you can see here a Microsoft Windows GUI. Okay, how it appears for the system. Okay, appears in the system. Uh, it's all with bright colors, and you can as soon as you install any applications, it will appear here, okay, as a new application, or if you click any photos, that is also will be displayed continuously here. Okay, so this is the advanced version of Windows, Microsoft Windows OS. Okay, so how the GUI appears in this case, you can see here. So let us see blossoming of World Wide Web. So in the earlier days, in 1969, the internet, then known as ARPANET, okay, ARPANET, NET, okay, was brought online, connecting the computers at four major universities. So this was the uh, ARPANET was the first online system that connected computers at four major universities. Okay, so one major goal of the internet was to provide communications network that would still function if some of the sites were destroyed by the nuclear attack. So that was a major goal here. Why they have introduced internet was mainly if some sites destroy, others should be working. So that's why you can say to uh, have a fault tolerant system, they introduced internet initially. The internet continued to develop, mature, and expand throughout the 1970s. Through the late 1970s and into the 1980s, the common language of all internet computers, TCP and IP, was created. Okay, TCP/IP was created maybe around in 1970s to 1980 that year. Okay, those years they have created TCP/IP. The internet as it's known today came into existence, and in 1982 the term internet was coined. So earlier it was the first name given for the internet was it was given on 1982. In 1990, ARPANET was decommissioned and leaving only the vast network of networks called Internet. In 1989, another significant event took place in a laboratory, that is European Laboratory for Particle Physics. It introduced a new protocol for distributing the information. That protocol was based upon hypertext. Okay. The language created in conjunction with the protocol was Hypertext Markup Language, or we call it as HTML. Okay. So later in 1992, Delphi introduced first commercial online internet to access to its subscribers. The first popular graphical based hypertext browser was Mosaic. It was created by NCSA at University of Illinois in 1993. And later, Netscape Navigator was the most successful browser until Microsoft declared its Internet Explorer, okay, in 1995. And here you can see the chronological order of history of internet. In 1945 the hypertext concept was introduced. 1960 MIT proposes a global network for computers. In 1962 design and develops the ARPANET, and in 1969 ARPANET is brought into online, and 1973 ARPANET goes international. In 1974 the first commercial version of ARPANET was introduced. In 1976 the first hypertext system was released for the user community, and in 1982 the term internet was coined. Internet. Okay, in 1983 TCP/IP architecture was universally adopted, and in 1988 hypertext idea was widely used, and the first internet worm was unleashed during those days, that is 1988 internet worm. Okay, it's mainly for attacking the systems, were introduced in 1988. Till then there was no, I guess there were no attacks on the systems till 1989. In European Laboratory for Practical Physics proposes a new protocol for distributing the information among the systems. It was based upon hypertext. In 1990, HTML was created, and in 1991, HTML code released on Internet by Tim, and first really friendly interface was introduced in 1991. In 1992, if you see here, Delphi released first commercial online internet. That was online internet was available for the subscribers. Maybe those days the subscription cost was very high. Okay, but Delphi was the first to introduce such subscription for the online internet. And 1994 Netscape Navigator version 1.0 was released, and World Wide Web Consortium was founded, okay, to promote and develop the web standards. In 1995 Microsoft Internet Explorer version 1.2, 1.0 and 2.0 was released, and later the newer versions of all other explorers were, you can see here Opera and Microsoft Explorer 5.0 was also released on in the same year, that is 1995. Here are some examples through which you can create your own websites. So you have uh, you know, Python, Perl. These are the languages which are PHP, Java, and Ruby. Ruby is
one more language you have similar to Python, programming language for the web application. Okay, so these some of the uh, programming languages that are being used for mainly for web applications, web development, and you also have Node. So the traditional websites are being developed using this Node and Angular JS. So this is also it's a framework for web applications. It uses HTML as the main um, coding language here, and you also have WordPress similar to your Joomla. It's both are similar kind. Joomla is also used for publishing web contents. Okay, and Bootstrap you have that's it's kind of a toolkit, and it has a collection of HTML, CSS, JavaScript for creating the web pages. And similarly, you have jQuery. Okay, and also you have certain HTML, CSS, JavaScript to develop every kind of websites or web applications. Okay, these are few examples. So you can see a brief history of screen design here. Okay, so let us begin with that. So here the screens were earlierly displayed in cathode ray tube. Nowadays you have LCDs, LEDs displays, but earlier it was all cathode ray tubes, cathode ray tube displays. Is it? So in those days, the fields were very cryptic and unintelligible captions were there, and it was all visually cluttered. And you wanted to use command fields that challenged the users to remember what has to be typed into it. Okay, so the screens mostly were monochromatic, as you can see. There were the black screen in the background, and the display whatever it has in green color. Okay, so whatever you want to type, the typing commands, maybe you say if you want to get an help, you have to type it. So you have to remember each and everything, and its manual also will be present there. uh, so here in earlier days, if you are seeing any worldwide web applications, you had to remember each and everything. But nowadays, the user interface is very friendly. You no need of remembering or memorizing the commands. Everything you'll be getting in hand. Okay. So this is a So as you can see here, one of the example they have given how the screen was displayed in 1970s. In earlier 1970s, the screen design at the time period had little to guide it, being driven by hardware and telephone line transmission issues. And it was effectively using a kind of screen required a great deal of practice and patience also. So it was mostly monochromatic, typically presenting green text on black backgrounds. So everything, whatever the commands they wanted to do, they had to type it here, memorizing the commands, and the screen was not that visually designed very good. Okay, you had you want lot of patience to write on these particular screens, is it? And, but after 10 years, that is in 1980s, the screen was little bit redesigned, and at the turn of decade, guidelines for text-based screen design were finally made widely available, and many screens began to take on much less cluttered look through concepts such as grouping and alignments of elements. So as you can see here, the screen design is very much clear, and whatever the names you want to type, you can type here. But again, you need to remember some of the function keys what you have to press here. Okay. So in 1990s, if you are going to see, after 10 years, the same screen was a little bit modified. The advent of graphics yielded another milestone in the evolution of screen design. Uh, so it visually enhanced the groupings, and buttons and menus were also used. As you can see here, that forms are being filled here. uh, you can see, if you are clicking here some of the buttons, you can get some menus here. Drop down options you'll be getting, spin boxes you may get, and also if you want to have a day, if you want to have a day, there may be a display of a calendar also. Rates are also, maybe if you want to choose in dollars, you can choose it in dollars, or if you want in rupees, that may be also mentioned in rupees. So everything was easy after 1990s compared to the earlier screen designs.